welcome back to the Couch Buddies. I am Blade.
And I am DJ. And guys, welcome to another Couchisode, your Wednesday night pleasure. Or it depends. It could be late night. It could be on Thursday. It could be in any day that you decide to watch the Couchisode. Welcome, guys, to another Couchisode. And today we're gonna have some interesting choice of games, right, Blade?
Some peculiar choice of games.
Exactly. So we're gonna travel to the world of voyeurism. We're gonna have some mad roaches on the house, and we're gonna top it up with maybe some pizza slices. Who knows? Yeah. Anyways, guys, welcome to the new one, and we're gonna kick off right away with some excellent games. And today, to make things, let's say quick and effective, we're gonna get right on to our first game, which I'm sure everyone remembers, and you probably played this one too. So the game I'm gonna kick off today is gonna be Pizza Tycoon from 1994. Yeah, great game, man. This was released for Windows, MS-DOS, Amiga, macOS, Linux. I mean, it was released for a dozen number of platforms. Strangely enough, not for the consoles though, but understandable due to the type of game that it was. So, despite that, the version that I actually always played was the one from Microprose. This was actually an adaptation from the US market, since the original version and the European release was published by Assemble Entertainment. This game also had a different name in the European Union. It was actually, people from the EU knew it as Pizza Connection. The reason why this game didn't make it to the US was, or with this name in the US, was due to the cartoon style used in the game that was very similar to the 1950s magazine or comic magazine, as you remember, called Mad. And there was some issues there with licensing and so on. So guys, pay attention. If you're looking for this game somewhere on online platforms or any digital stores like GOG or something like that, you have to search for Pizza Connection, not Pizza Tycoon. But enough of the introductions, let's go up to the game. So Pizza Tycoon is a business simulation game where we take the role of a pizza restaurant entrepreneur, let's say, with the mission to make the business global and to, earn customers all around the world. We can play this in several different modes when we start. We have the quick mode where you start with the restaurant already equipped and you just need to click on the zone where you want to start, and then you create the menu and hire restaurant workers and so on. You have the mission mode, which is you're going to get simple tasks along the way that you have to complete. And you have free mode, which is basically start from scratch, go through the process of, even as if you were a real business owner. You have to rent or buy a venue. You have to, pick up the appliances, the chairs, the tables, and so on. Basically do all the decoration and hire the staff for it. And this was for me the type of, or the game mode that I usually played the most. I really wanted to do the thing of starting from scratch because it was really, really interesting to see it this way. For me as a kid, the appeal of this game was to be able to create your own pizzas, and this was the part where I would spend most of the time doing it. I'd love to sit down and try different combinations of pizzas, because you could actually make your own pizzas and change the ingredients. I have to confess that I wasn't that successful, honestly. I was always getting very low scores, because every time you would make a pizza, you could take the pizza to the critics, and then you had people giving you scores on your pizza.
Yeah.
And the thing about, you probably remember this one, I was always getting, very low scores, and I never understood that why. But actually, this is the copy protection of the game. So for those who don't know, Pizza Tycoon had a leaflet inside the manual that had the classic pizza, compositions and ingredients. And if you didn't go with those quantities or those amounts of, let's say, tomato, oregano, cheese, and whatever and so whatnot, what would happen here is that the critics would give you a low score, and even if you would open a restaurant with those pizzas, you could not sell them because they were not good. So this was actually a very clever copy protection that this game had, which was, quite amazing for the time. Obviously for me, I had not bought the game at the time, so, piracy, so, for me, it was kind of like trial and error situation. I was always trying to make it good, but the actual truth is that it was only at a very, very late stage that I was playing this game that I found out that you needed to follow this manual, and eventually I started getting good at the game. Last but not the least, another side of the game is that, which, at the age that I was playing it, I really didn't have a clue of what that was. But as this game is about pizzas, pizzas lead to Italians, Italian leads to mafia, and the game was very good at exploring that.
Yeah.
So, aside from selling pizzas and having restaurants, you could actually buy illicit substances that they were denominated in the game as ice cream. You would actually call a guy and you could buy ice cream, and you could sell them somewhere else for a profit. This was what you could actually do. You would actually make a lot of money, thus making the restaurant business a little bit easier. However, the more you deal in ice cream, let's say, the more risk you'd face of getting the police on your tracks, and then eventually you might get arrested and go to jail, and obviously shutting down your whole business. A very fun and enjoyable game in my view. The only thing that is less positive in this game was the fact that every time you had to reach out to someone, like for example, you had to ask a loan to the bank or call a real estate agent and so on, you'd need to use the phone. And the problem was every time you dial one of those numbers, you'd have to listen to the dial tones, and you would have to wait for the whole thing to go through until you could actually contact someone. So again, I think for me this was the less positive part of the game, but it was honestly still a great game that I spent a lot of time playing it, and it was absolutely amazing. I think that everyone should give it a go. This is actually this game has actually two sequels. It was Pizza Connection 2 and 3 in 2001 and 2018 respectively, and all of them are actually available on GOG from prices that range from $4.99 to 19.99 euros. So they are quite affordable. They are not very, very expensive, and it's something that you can play, very easily. Again, just remember Pizza Connection and not Pizza Tycoon, because that was the US name. If you do want to play, or download it from abandonware sites or something like that, you'll probably get the US version, which is Pizza Tycoon. So, Blade, I guess you played this one, right?
Yeah. It was a fun one. I still remember that detail you mentioned when you needed anything, that you needed to dial the numbers and just wait. It was a bit tedious, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was one of the business simulation games that I spent the most playing.
It was fun.
And this was back in the time where I was really enjoying games like, SimCity and, the other Tycoons, actually Transport Tycoon, for example, another great game of the Tycoon era. And also Roller Coaster Tycoon. I don't know if it came out along these times. I think it was later on, but it was
played Roller Coaster Tycoon too much. I played the Bullfrog one. Theme Park a lot. And
Theme Park.
A lot. I was never much into Roller Coaster Tycoon, to be honest. Not sure why. I guess
everyone did, It's just that it's one of those games that... But this one really piqued my interest. And, it was just the thing that you could control so many things. Like, you could control exactly the restaurant you would buy. You could actually look into the neighborhood if it was favorable to have a restaurant there or not. So there was a lot of things you could control here. And,
fun.
I only discovered that back in the day. I only played like, maybe 70% or 60% of the game, because I wasn't even exploring all the other things like, dealing in ice cream. So I never actually found that out. Try it out, guys. It's a good one. Let us know in the comments if you did play this one, because this is a very good one that if you didn't, you should try.
Yeah, so, DJ, we started with the pizza, so we're ready for the movie-like games.
Yes, pizza. I mean the voyeurism games, right? I think that's what you're going to bring us, right?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Maybe.
I'm going to start
Let's talk about it.
Something that might relate to that. I didn't tell you which game I was talking about. I just mentioned something, and you're curious. I know that. That's why we're calling it voyeurism. It's not exactly voyeurism, because there's a game actually called Voyeur we need to talk about at some point. Not today. Today, I'm going to talk about a very specific game. I actually have a physical
copy of that game here next to me. So, but yeah, let's bring that on that you want to.
On another time. So today, I'm going to talk about a '91 game that came out for the Sega CD. That was called actually Mega CD in Portugal. We gave it a different name, but it was the Sega CD. This game was a bit of a cliche game called Night Trap.
Oh, I know which one it is. So It's the typical 90s era that when CDs came along, everything was made in full motion video.
Exactly. Now this was basically a full motion video game where you got a simple intro with a police captain just telling you there was this house and some teenagers went missing, and you just had to keep an eye out on them. They had several cameras around the house. That's why I told you this was a voyeurism game. knocked you to the wrong one.
But it was so bad. I mean, not bad. I mean, it was so weird because the cameras were as if any family would have that many cameras in a house that you could observe them. Like
technically,
that one.
it was the police that installed them and installed the traps to capture whoever's trying to harm the teenagers that were going to the house. And one of those teenagers was supposedly an undercover cop because they suspected something. And at some point, I'll confess to you, I thought at the first times I played the game, I didn't know exactly the story. And I thought that the criminals, I thought they were criminals, were a bit weird. They were going like they were falling apart or something. They were weird as hell. At some point, I actually figured out that they weren't criminals. They were actually vampires. And they were trying to capture and kill the teenagers to get their blood. Simple as that. I think they were called augurs or whatever they were called. And the owners of the house, the family that owned the house, were actually in the process of becoming vampires themselves. And the actual game was quite simple. You could just switch between cameras to follow the story, see where people were and hear them talk. But you had to, at the right time, switch to the right camera, catch the ogre coming, and just activate the trap in the exact moment to capture him. This was a huge trial and error game. You would have to actually learn the timing of everything so you could do the game from start to finish. This was quite an addictive game, but now that you look at it, the game wasn't anything special, but it was fun to play at the time. And the game actually came out a few years ago, in its 25th anniversary, I think, on Steam and on Switch. I'm not sure if it came out in any other platform, but it's a game you should try. Everyone should try this game. It's a weird game. I'm not going to tell you that it's an awesome game. It isn't. But it's something people need to actually try. This is what the 90s were about with FMV games. Seriously, and this was a very peculiar one. I thought that you brought it up.
I think that's exactly what we saw about, and that's one of the. I mean, the next game I'm going to bring up is actually that. I mean, it's how the 90s brought us some weird experimentation and some really weird titles, and some of them, I mean, story-wise, some of them didn't make any sense, but I think it was more at that point to show the capabilities of something, because back in the 90s, the whole concept was to bring games more close to reality than what we have. I mean, nowadays we actually complain that games are too realistic because some of them even look better than reality in games. And back then, I think people didn't really care for a story. They just wanted good graphics, or at least something that was similar to reality. And that's why movie actors were started to being used very frequently in games that came out, especially on the CDs, as the CDs and the game media is starting to get bigger and taking up more space. But that's a great one. I never played the game, actually. I only seen long gameplays of it because I never owned the Sega CD. I never owned even owned the Mega Drive
Steam nowadays, so just try it out.
But you can try it out actually on the PC also, I believe. So actually, did that come for the PC? No, it didn't, right?
No, in the 25-year anniversary edition came out for Steam and Switch. I'm not too sure if it came out for any other platform, but I know these two, it came out for sure.
I'll check that out, obviously, and the guys in the comments probably will let us know if they did play it or not. Sega CD, I don't remember it being such a huge sales hit. Especially because I believe that when the Sega CD came out, there was already other consoles that had CD capabilities, or they were just about to come out on the market. So
it came out too late in the Mega Drive life cycle, and
I think it was the precursor. Probably was the precursor to the Sega Saturn.
I mean, the Sega CD. Cheap. It was quite an expensive add-on, and then you had the 32X add-on. The whole console assembled as a huge block would be quite expensive.
I remember playing in a friend's house Virtua Fighter with the 32X add-on, because Virtua Fighter in the console itself, in the 16-bit, wasn't. I mean, you couldn't really do that.
No.
But I remember, shortly after the Sega Saturn coming out. But that's the story for another time. Yeah. Some of the Sega consoles that we have. So, not delaying it too further, I'm going to bring another game, and once again, let's go back to the 90s. And let's talk about Bad Mojo from 1996 that was released for Windows and Macintosh by Pulse Entertainment.
That was quite an odd one.
this was odd. I mean,
Yeah.
what to say about this game? I mean, this one is a clear indication on how the video game industry was just exploring how far they could go, not in terms of technology, but probably, also in terms of gameplay and storylines.
When you mention that game, the image that immediately comes to my mind is the image of a dead rat and roaches.
Yes,
Seriously.
yeah, okay. We'll go into that, and I'll explain you how those images of dead rats. But I can tell you something: they were real. They were real.
I know.
Those were not CGI. As it's boldly stated on the box, Bad Mojo is also known as the Roach game. It really says on the box, it says the Roach game. If you thought that you're gonna kill, cockroaches during the game, well, I mean, you're wrong. That's not the point of the game. The story takes place in 1958, where the main character is a guy called Roger Sams, just embezzled $1 million from the company that he was working as an entomologist. So, for those who don't know what an entomologist is, he's a guy that studies insects. Roger plans was to take this money and flee to Mexico City and to escape his rather disappointing life in the city. I mean, this is a classic story of someone that, steals money from someone or some company, whatever. After an argument with his shady landlord that was called Eddie Batito, this was over rent payment, Rogers is magically transformed into a cockroach, and this is where the adventure starts. So the whole concept of the intro is just the guy has a very weird discussion, and then eventually he looks at a locket in his hand and he gets transformed into a roach. Bad Mojo is an adventure game, and the gameplay is mostly going around and solving puzzles as a cockroach while you experience the game from its point of view. You will face some of the most disgusting scenarios that are scattered through Eddie's building, as well as situations where you have to defend yourself against other bugs, roach traps, and whatever comes along.
Yeah.
In this journey, Roger will get some clarity on his past, and especially regarding his family, whom he never knew who they were, with the exception of his mother that died during his birth. The game actually included, as we were just talking earlier, the game actually included live animals from where the footage was taken, both for full motion video, but also for the 3D rendered scenarios. There is a point you will see a dead mouse, so that was actually a real mouse that was killed by an exterminator and put on the set to be shot. There will be also a dead fish that is trying to breathe out of water, like these gills are opening and closing. This is actually a real fish that was bought and gutted by the local fishmonger, and even a tarantula. So, back in the 90s, the concept of no animals were harmed was not really in place, and I think we came a long way in just a couple of decades into protecting animal rights of, whether it's a dog or a roach, it doesn't really matter. They're both important parts of our ecosystem anyway, so that doesn't really go along. A final note on this game was that the acting, as expected, it was full motion video. Acting was very cheesy. I mean, it was very exaggerated, and most of the times we would see some actors trying to do their best, but in fact that wasn't really, really good. But in this case, it doesn't mean that the game is actually poorly written. It's just that it's actually very well conceived from a writing standpoint. But as usual, actors overdo it, and this game is actually no exception. Just out of curiosity, the actor that plays Roger Sams, the main character of this game, is actually Michael X. Summers, that plays a character with his own name in the Sense8 series in Netflix. So if you don't know, Michael Summers was the main, the guy that played Roger Sams. He also played a role in Sense8. This game had a remastered version back in 2004, and they kept all the original story and the gameplay, so nothing changed aside from greatly improving the graphics, which was something that was really, really needed. The original 96 version is still around the internet. I mean, you can still easily find it in abandonware sites, but if you wish to play this on a modern system, you can actually get this on GOG for $4.99. So again, what a weird game. I mean, what a weird game. I mean, the brutality, the disgusting scenes that you would see. I don't know, man. The 90s was really, really a weird decade in terms of gaming. You would either get the best games in the world, or you would get like really weird stuff. Really weird stuff.
They were original.
Wow, what to say, man?
Say that.
No, I mean, the game was good. I liked the game. I really played it, and
seriously
I played it back in the day, and I really liked it. But I can't really avoid looking back at it and think, how the hell something like this would be allowed today? I mean, it wouldn't, of course, it wouldn't. But
yeah, it wouldn't.
It's just.
It
makes me
try and imagine a company meeting to make a game, and someone says, "Nah, we should make a game. Any ideas? We should play a cockroach and have dead animals around, and
Oh yeah, but then dead animals are going to be CGI. No, no, we're actually
No,
going to
we're
kill
gonna
rats,
actually...
fish, and tarantulas to put it in the game.
Yeah. Can you imagine that meeting?
I can imagine. I
In the
mean, PETA would
1990s you
be on
could.
top of these
Yeah.
people. Like, definitely. But again, guys, give it a go. I mean,
Yeah.
if you like some really weird and morbid stuff, uh, the game itself is all weird but in a very good sense. But
Yeah.
it's really well written. There are actually hints on every room that you go with the roach. There are actually hints in a voice. And that voice is from a character of the game, which I won't tell you because it will, spoil the game story. But they are all, they are sang in rhymes, and it was really well written because in some of those the hints are really really good, and you don't need to make a great effort to understand what they are actually saying. But it's really well written. It really shows that the producers and the writers did put a lot of time into it. So it deserves the whatever the €5 that it's worth that you can find it on GOG for.
There was a lot of effort put into this.
Give it a go. Let us know if you played it on the comments as usual. So and Blade, what do you have for us today to wrap it up?
So we have pizza, we have cheesy 90s vampires, we have roaches.
Yes.
What
I
are
guess
we missing?
We're missing something.
What's are we missing? Cheesy 90s horror.
Oh God! If I knew you very well, I would say we're going to talk about Phantasmagoria, but I know you are not.
Nah.
And that wasn't cheesy. That was actually very, very scary.
The first one was actually very good. And I mean very good. The first one. But
Indeed.
I'm going to talk about the 97 game called Realms of the Haunting.
Doesn't ring any bells.
Okay, so this was the typical story where you go to a haunted house and something happens and you get locked inside. But the story went something like your father died and your father was a pastor. And you were called Adam, if I recall right. And you were told by a mysterious priest to go to this house because he told you that you would find something that would relate to the death of your father in this house. And you would actually go to this house, and as soon as you had got in, the doors would close and you'd be locked inside. This is the typical story. What would you discover inside? A lot of spirits and demons. What would you expect in a horror game? That you were locked in a big house. So the goal of the game was actually coming out of the house. It's not
going to be in a garden that you're going to be locked with, flowers and stuff like that. So, and unicorns. So
that would be peculiar. So
go ahead.
You went into this house. How would this game go? You had demons, you had spirits, and you would meet a few different factions in there. And I won't get into details so people can play this one. What you would find out is that priest that sends you there is actually a 500-year-old French sorcerer that is trying to bring forth the end of the world. Not cheesy at all, right?
Yeah, man, it keeps getting better, but please go on.
And the house was actually built over an old satanic temple. You keep joining this stuff, you have all the ingredients. You would actually have some help in this game of a psychic you'd meet and a dead knight, if I recall this, a fallen knight. And the game would play like similar to Doom. But you'd have the cursor moving around, you could pick up objects, you could solve puzzles, you could have those objects interact with the scenario. So you had puzzles, and you had fight scenes, but the fight scenes weren't like Doom at all. They would just sometimes pop up, you just have to kill an enemy, it wasn't very challenging. It was just there because it had to, but the game was actually quite cool. And the whole environment around it was actually quite cool, and the story was nice. The story was told 100% in full motion videos that you would get the cutscenes at every step. And it was actually quite a cool game. I'm not going to get deep into the story because if you've played this, you would know the story. If you haven't, try this game. It's actually pretty cool. It looks weird in concept. It's actually a pretty cool game. It's a lot of cliche details on horror movies, but it's actually really quite fun game and quite good. The story is actually quite nice, apart from you knowing exactly what's going to happen at some point. But it has some nice details and it plays quite nicely. Still today, you can get it on GOG. I'm not sure of the price, but it shouldn't be expensive at all. It's probably €5, 10 maximum.
give it a go. I haven't played that one, but I really have to check the genre because if I think you mentioned that it has some elements of FPS with RPG and
it actually
I mean, it
mixes
has
quite a few different types of games, but you get a puzzle-solving game with an FPS, basically. This is the easiest way to describe the gameplay, and a lot of story and a lot of videos. And I mean a lot of videos.
That's what makes it interesting because it's a mix of genres, or at least play styles of genres, which might be. I'm gonna tell you that I wasn't like the major fan of FPS, but it really depends on the elements that bring in, and if that's the case, if it brings like new elements and things that are not really usual to the genre, it will be worthwhile giving it a go.
I think they actually chose that type of gameplay to give you more freedom to explore the house and not have that linear movement type that you usually had in these types of games, and it actually gave you some freedom. It was cool. It was actually cool back then.
Let's give it a go. Let's ask the people on the comments if they played this one as usual, and let's see what they say. If they did, maybe they will know more about it than me because I haven't played this one, honestly. And
I'm looking at the pizza box. There's no more pizza, so I'm not talking about any more games. No food.
We gotta wrap it
talking.
up. Yeah. There's no more games today, guys. We have
no food.
We are
no
very
talking.
sorry.
Me need food.
Just like any of the good game eras, some things have to come to an end, and this Couchisode will have to come to an end today. So guys, as usual, leave a like if you like, leave a dislike if you didn't like. Consider subscribing to the channel, and guys, don't forget about it. Next week we'll see each other again on another Couchisode. So guys, Blade.
Yeah, we'll have a brand new Couchisode. No roaches. We'll clean the place. Probably not pizza again. It becomes expensive to feed so many people. So, bring your own. Just bring your own pizza. Yeah, I should start this. Bring your own pizza.
BYOP. BYOP. Bring your own pizza.
Biop.
Yeah.
Biop.
Biop.
So, guys, anyway,
forget it.
Let's wrap this up. I hope you guys have a great week. I hope you enjoyed this Couchisode. We'll see each other next week. And game on, everyone. Have fun.
See you guys. Game on. Have fun.